All right, welcome out to another and Ambassador Club live that we do. Normally, Mika is here; she's on vacation, so the guys are holding it down. We're so excited today to talk about an amazing topic, which we have a thought expert that's out here, Mark Salisbury and Enum. Hello, Enum. How you doing?
Hi, how are you? Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Good, good. So Mark Salisbury is phenomenal. We met him because we know that a lot of the students today get a lot of money from the institutional merit-based grants or scholarships or endowments that are out there. And so you are an expert. You were actually were you on CNBC or were you on like a national news publication? Because I saw you on the news the other day. What publication were you on, Mark?
Well, let's see here. I think that was the NBC, but yeah, CNBC and NBC, and yeah, kind of making the rounds. Kind of strange.
Definitely. So before we jump into the amazing company Tuition Fit that you created, I want to see if we can actually find out a little bit about your background, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think you came into the world just thinking you were going to start Tuition Fit. So walk us through like how you got what was your background like? Did you go to a public school, private school? Walk us through that.
Sure. Yeah. I grew up, my dad was a preacher up in Minnesota. And so I went to small schools that were church affiliated schools growing up. And when I was looking at college, I was just kind of thinking about, this is what you do. This is what everybody does, right? You're just supposed to go to college. I didn't have great guidance. I didn't have great plans. I just kind of followed the crowd, and that was probably not the best move in retrospect. I finished college after transferring twice and going through a robust 7 years of undergrad. Thank you very much. And finally decided, well, okay, now I'm finally educated. So then I kind of got the bug to go to graduate school, and I thought, well, I'll go and do a little bit of study in what was called American Studies at the time. And so I moved to Lawrence, Kansas, and Rock Chalk Jayhawk KU, and
Yes.
did a master's degree at KU. And even then I was sort of like thinking, well, I'll kind of maybe I'll be a professor or something. And then I kind of figured out, you know what? I'm not smart enough to be a professor. There's some people here way smarter than me. But strangely, I ended up getting a chance to be a soccer coach and ended up being a college soccer coach for a little over a decade. Started my career down in the gorgeous Hollis or Rolla, Missouri, for those of you who know where that is. Kind of in the middle of nowhere a little bit, but very beautiful nowhere. And I kind of hit my stride. I found a little bit of my calling coaching college soccer and being a part of college athletics in a place where it was really about growing up as a young person. And sport was just a way to do that. And I just found that really gratifying. Sports was kind of my classroom, which, of course, late November outside, it's not that fun of a classroom sometimes, but I still really enjoyed that kind of work. So I coached for 11 years. And by the end of 11 years, I burned out pretty good. College coaching is a really tiring job. And if anybody's watching who's sort of paying attention to college sports these days, you kind of see how it's a tough thing to do for very long. And but I'd really gotten a bug for higher education. And I was just like, wait a minute, how does this thing actually work? I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been watching how this plays out. Students come to school and then they do their thing, and most of them seem to do okay, but it's not that way everywhere. And when it doesn't work, why? And how is it that there's certain kinds of students that just never seem to find their way to higher ed, and other students, it's just a cakewalk? Like, what's going on here? And so I
Yeah.
I went back to college as a 36-year-old college student, balding and the whole thing, not fitting in, old man on campus. I went back to the University of Iowa and I did a PhD studying higher ed. And that was a pretty big pivot. What was interesting to me was I actually was a pretty good student. It took me till I was about 35 years to actually be a pretty good student.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But I kind of found, okay, grown up enough, learn how to be organized, learn how to be on top of things. I'm a good learner, but I'm a slow learner, apparently. But I got my way in there finally, and I did the higher ed thing, and I studied it, and I got a PhD, and then I spent the next decade or so really studying college students and college access and how this thing's supposed to work.
Before we go there, I can hear your brain clicking. There's a couple things I'm going to unpack. All right, so did you, when you went to high school and you made that transition to college, did your parents pay for you to go to college? First question.
Yes, they did.
Okay. So you didn't have to worry about the burden of how to pay for college because you had that support, right?
I was very lucky. My parents had a way to pay for college. And, even though we're talking about the 1980s, college was still expensive. It wasn't like it was just, a nickel. It was still, comparison, it was still expensive. And I remember looking at schools and going, my parents kind of looking at me quietly going, no, we can't afford that. But I was very fortunate they were able to pay for school.
So I didn't want to gloss over that because somebody may say, well, he may have had his parents that paid for it, or he was really, really smart and he got a full ride academically or what have you, right? Or you may have been a sports person or whatever. But I think your story is even more, I guess, amazing because for you to have your parents to pay for it, most of the time people that come from, because for people like me, my mom didn't have the money like that. She had to go into her 401k to give me a shot, right? Enum, did your parents pay for you to go to college or did you have to find your own way?
I had to partially. So for my undergrad, they paid maybe 70% of the way, and the 30% were grants, but that was also international, so it wasn't in the US. But when I came to the US to do graduate school, they could only pay for maybe 30% of it. And so I had to get grants and scholarships and some loan, and I had to work on campus. So it was just, little piece from everywhere. But I was fortunate that I did not graduate with the student debt that most people do. So yeah.
Yes.
It's
so
different.
the reason why
even looking back on it now, Claude, I didn't know anything. I had no idea. And even though my parents were able to pay for it, I look back now and go, man, what I could have done differently if I'd had the guidance that you provide, to students, and the counseling that folks can get just to make smarter choices. I never even asked if I could get any scholarship money. I never even asked. I didn't know you could. I had no idea.
Which is good that you said that. So this is the reason why I asked that question. For, let's say, for example, I'm a track runner. And so because I'm a track runner, I can relate, right, to other people that run track. For you, you didn't have the plight of how to, of the burden of how to pay for college. So there was an aha moment that happened for you that I want everybody that's listening to catch. What inside of your heart, what inside of your head got you to see a problem that wasn't your particular problem when you were growing up? What happened that caused you to say, I was called to serve and solve this problem? That's what I want to ask you.
I'll never forget this conversation. This was when I was coaching college soccer. And when you're coaching in a smaller schools, you're doing a lot of admissions work too. And I remember I'd met a family. The daughter was a good soccer player, and we had talked. And so the family drove up to the campus I was at, and I was giving them a tour, and just really, really good people, just really nice, kind, certainly not affluent at all, but just good people, the kind of people that you meet and you're like, I just want to be around you because you just have a vibe of like, these are just salt of the earth folks. And the dad pulled me aside and he said, like, look, my wife and I, we never went to college. We don't know all this stuff. We don't make a ton of money, and we can't afford to just apply to every college that our daughter likes. We can't just afford to go visit every campus, take a day off of work to go drive around. So can you tell me what our price is going to be? I mean, even if it's not going to be any discount at all, just tell us now so that we know, so that when we start applying to colleges, which is going to cost us money anyway, that we don't just throw money away, because we don't have we can't afford that. And I remember just his face, and I just remember everything about it. And it was so genuine and so like, and I felt really kind of honored and humbled that he trusted me enough to sort of open up that way. But that was just this giant, holy cow, light opens from the sky kind of moment comes down. And I felt terrible when I was sitting there trying to sort of hem and haw and tell him, that's just not how the system works. Like, I don't know what your price is going to be, and I can't really tell you. And I'm not even supposed to tell you if I did know. And I'm really sorry. And I remember after that just feeling really bad, and thinking like, what kind of a system do we have here where it's got all this disadvantage built into it, all this little way that it excludes people just by sort of hiding the information that they needed the most. And I'll never forget that, because that really hit me hard.
And see, those moments, I think, are defining moments. And I know, Enum, you've had those, different areas of your life where those defining moments come, and it's not just a regular day as usual. It's one of those days that you say, this marks the day that a new beginning was birthed. Right. So go ahead, Enum. I feel you got something you want to add to that. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, yes, definitely when you have those defining moments and they happen, sometimes you don't even have the background, or you don't even know where to start, right? But you have this idea and it's so strong. And so you reach out and start talking to people, and you really realize how widespread the challenge or the problem is, and how everybody's kind of thinking of a solution, but nobody really knows how to implement it, and so that is definitely true for the aha moment. What I wanted to kind of go back to something that you said earlier on is when you were talking about choosing your college and just kind of going with the flow, and how important it is, what difference it would have made to have somebody kind of guide you. But then you went for a master's, and then the PhD was really where you kind of found your passion, right? Mm-hmm. Did any of the experiences, I guess you touched a little bit on this, but any of the experiences between your undergraduate and your master's, did you ever have any like tech experience, any experience that kind of shapes into what your new, I guess, career role company is? Did you have any actual like in the classroom experience, or was it more like learn as you go type experience?
Well, between my undergrad and graduate school, it's kind of funny to say it that way, because when you spend 7 years doing undergrad, there's like, well, it's kind of a longer thing than between,
Right,
and there was times where I was part-time.
Their life experiences.
Yes. And yes, I'll tell you the classroom stuff for me as an undergrad, it kind of, but it was, it was okay, but it wasn't the thing that really flipped my switch. What really got me to be passionate about finishing college and just being around, I got involved writing with the student newspaper at the University of Minnesota, which is where I finished my undergraduate degree. And I got involved writing for the paper, and I just fell for that hard. And suddenly it was really about like okay, just what classes and how many of them do I have to take so I can keep writing for the paper? It wasn't like, the other way around probably, and you had to do well enough in your classes to still be able to have this kind of a job. And so it was that co-curricular experience that really, I think, played a big role in making sure that I finished and that I really sort of grew a lot as a person. So it took the things that I was learning in class and now it's starting to think about, well, how do those things apply in the real world, right? And what does that mean? And those are the things that, I mean, for me, that was the thing that really jumps out and I think about my undergrad experience.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
That was a great question. So now let's lead into Tuition Fit. So can you explain the concept of what Tuition Fit stands for? And then can we go through some examples of some students? You don't have to give names, obviously. But can you give some examples or some chicken soup stories of how students came to you and they were able to benefit from what Tuition Fit offers? Sure.
Well, you know what? At the time, I didn't realize it, but Inam, you were saying this, that there's this moment you can point to where and it maybe takes a little while afterwards to sort of figure out that was the moment, right? Mm-hmm. But it was years later, and I was really digging into, real involved in studying college student success and access and thinking about, well, why is it that there's so many differences? And I had been doing some research in a related field that was about student decision making. And I was just noticing like there's this clear sense that there's something going on that's getting in the way of students of all types, especially lower income and first generation students, getting access to higher education in the way that they really need it. And it sort of took me back to that one conversation. And I realized, like, wait a minute, the information that the public wants to be able to make the best decision for them is not provided in the same order that the public wants it. And there's all this stuff about, oh, well, sure, the information's out there. And so a lot of people in the higher ed community will say, yeah, it's fine, we're good, the information, but it's not. And it's not in the way that the consumer needed it. And so I started thinking about, well, people want to know what the actual price is going to be. They can't find that out because the sticker prices are over the moon. The average prices at colleges are about half the sticker price. But what that means for the individual student is that at any given school, your price could be 20 grand on either side of that average. Mm-hmm. And that's not like nothing. That's a bunch of money, right?
Yes.
And that's the difference between people looking at something and going, wait a minute, you want me to go and do this dance and spend this money and all this stuff only to tell me later a price tag that I can't afford? Well, forget it. I'm not going to do this at all. That's a shell game. And the heck with you for asking me to play along, right?
Yeah.
So I started thinking, well, how do we create a way for the public to see all these actual prices? And we started thinking about it and knowing what I know and what I'd been doing for a number of years. And wait a minute, all the prices are in the award letters. I know how to read them. I practically wrote them, right? I know. So if I could build a way for the public to share those award letters and for the public to share just enough information about them, each of those individuals, so we know a little bit about their financial situation and their academic profile, which is what colleges use to determine your individual price, then I know that college gives this price to this type of student. Now zoom that out by a couple of thousand students, and you've got a Kelley Blue Book for college pricing. You got a Zillow, you got rent.com, all of those tools for college prices now. And so we built it in a way that said, all you got to do is share something, and then you got free access to compare what everybody else shared like you. And we put it out there and said, well, will people do this? And we were lucky enough to have talked to a number of people to sort of figure out we need to protect their private information. We need to protect personal information. We got to make this a trust exercise that people can trust in. But a year and almost 2 years later, we've got over 10,000 offers in our system now, and students come to the platform and they can find out, well, what are the schools that fit my price range? And they can start their college search with a lot more confidence that this isn't going to backhand you down the road. This isn't going to be surprise. I guess it's not going to work and get your heart broken. Like, you can actually just follow step by step and be on track to going to a school that's going to be in your price range that you can afford. You don't have that stress of like, oh, I got in, but now I probably won't be able to afford it. Right. Like, you can eliminate that. And so now we're able to help students real simply and help them at this stage, which is another thing, Claude, I know you wanted to talk about, help them negotiate an even better price now that they've got their own award letters because they know what else is out there.
Yeah, so you gave me an alley-oop for slam dunk. So let's talk about just that. There's a couple things. Thank you. Bam, right there. So let's talk about a couple things so that the families may not understand, because you said some things that, you know, when we work in this business all the time, we think that everybody else just understands it, right? So let's walk the families that are listening to this through the process. Your son or your daughter is a senior in high school. They have now gotten to the place where they need to do the FAFSA form, right? So they do the FAFSA form. They have a couple colleges that they're interested in. They list those colleges on the FAFSA form. Then obviously they're applying to those colleges, right? So typically what I see, and you correct me if you see something different, I'll see that they will apply to the college and then do the FAFSA, right? Mm-hmm. Then once they apply to the college, then they do the FAFSA based upon the deadline, right? And then they get an acceptance letter from the college, right? Woohoo! Happy, congratulations, you made it into XYZ University, right? You got accepted. And so the student is excited, right? I never received an acceptance letter into college because I actually went down there as a basketball tryout, and then I had to work it on the back end because I waited to the last minute. But getting the acceptance letters from the college gives you that warm fuzzy as a student. You're so happy, like, okay, put it on the refrigerator, you know, you're dancing around the house and all that, right? But as you're saying, just because you got that wonderful acceptance letter doesn't mean that they love you. Mm-hmm. You don't know if they love you financially until you get what, Mark?
Financial aid award offer from the financial aid office. Yep.
Yes, that award letter. So when you receive the award letter, now we know if they really love you or if they don't. And how do you know that? Because they're going to show you how much money you're going to have to pay out of your pocket, or if you're not going to have to pay anything out of your pocket, right?
Right.
But as Mark is telling us, and this is the reason why I want to highlight you today, and we're going to have you do some other things with us as we go into 2021 more, because this is the time of year that the families need your services more than ever before, right? I want to say that again. This is the time that the families need Tuition Fit more than ever before. Why? Because when you apply to college and you get accepted and then you get the award letter, we as families, especially first generation, there's probably 50% of the students that listen to our podcast are the first generation in 2021, which I think is crazy, right? But these first generation college-bound students, their parents don't even know what to tell you, let alone how to even look at the award letter and understand it, right? So I want to see if you can break that down for us today. But when they get that award letter back, walk us through some things that they should look at with the award letter before they even submit their things on Tuition Fit.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm so glad you highlighted the very specific, that there's some steps that everybody needs to go through here. The first thing they need to do when they look at that financial aid offer letter is understand that that letter coming from the school is not necessarily intended to clearly tell you what your price tag will be, what you'll get what you'll have to pay on your bill in this. It's intended to make you feel good. And so what that means is that they will oftentimes insert money that's not really free money, that's not scholarship money, that's loans they'll insert that into the award and then make it look like that loan is a freebie and include that when they subtract from the total to tell you what you actually have to pay. And so, well, the first thing you need to do is look through that letter and get like a yellow highlighter out and highlight every one of those lines that says loan on it. Now, some award letters are really good in that they separate the sections. So they have a section that's financial aid, that's grants and scholarships, and then they'll have a different section that's loans. But there's other schools that'll just weave those into each other and pretend it's all one thing. So you get that yellow highlighter out and make sure you see what things are on that, what dollar amounts are on that award letter that are really loans. And there's one in particular that I want people to really pay attention to. If they see the word parent plus in there, that's a particular kind of loan that you just want to be really careful about for a couple reasons. One is, just because it's in the award letter doesn't mean you actually have it anyway. You actually have to apply for it separately, and you can get rejected for a Parent Plus loan. And you usually don't find that out until August. So that's no guarantee anything. The second thing is that that's on your parents. They're the ones who are taking that out. And, you know, that's not such a great situation to be in when your parents are borrowing against their own retirement or just borrowing against what they don't really have anyway, and they'll having to pay it off for a long time just so you can go. So that's one loan that you, if at all possible, you stay away from. And if you do decide that's something you want to do, you only decide that because you've really gotten some great guidance, and in that particular situation, it's the right choice. But so many times the plus loan's not the right choice, and people just don't realize it. They just say, okay, I'll take this award letter. This is great. And all of a sudden there's stuff in there they didn't realize. So that's the big one, is really knowing what's in there that's loans, and it's not free money at all.
So these are the things that I want to make sure we can take away. Because I know, like, we've helped kids find private scholarships, and we both know that private scholarships are 3% of the total amount on average, on national average, of what people get out of their total award package. And so one of our students was able to use some other colleges, the award letters, and she put together the appeal letter, and then she used that appeal letter and wrote it to the college she's going to and asked if they can match it. And so we helped her get $52,000 more out of the college she's going to because she was able to leverage that, right?
That's great.
So, but we don't have the power of Tuition Fit. Like, we had her award letters, which were only like 3 to 5, right? And we took, I think, only 3 of those 5 that were, because the other 2 were okay, but they weren't really better than the primary offer she had already gotten. But the other 3 were pretty solid. So she used those and then wrote the appeal letter. But that's only 3 letters. And I know they can't use letters from Tuition Fit, but they can get a chance to look at other students and see where they can apply. So as they do research on the different award letters that are on their platform, on your platform, how can they leverage your platform to negotiate and get more money out of these endowments?
So when a student shares an award letter to Tuition Fit, then they automatically get to see, usually it's 50 to a couple of hundred offers that other students just like them have shared. So similar students. So with that, then you start to see the range of prices that students are actually getting, and across all kinds of different schools. Where this then becomes really powerful is because there's 2 kinds of arguments, 2 kinds of cases you're going to make when you try to ask a school for more money. And most schools like to call it an appeal, and they like to sort of focus on the financial needs side of it. but this is really important for your families to understand. The colleges and universities have now way more seats than they have students to fill them. And so they're not in a position where they get to say all the time, oh, we'll just take a few and the rest of you, sorry. They're in a position now where they're just trying to get students wherever they can. And what that means is that you as a consumer have a lot of power to say, not only is this going to take a financial sacrifice for us as a family, but we're trying to figure out which institution really offers the best value.
Yes.
And you can say to an institution, look, I appreciate what you do. You guys have great facilities. I love the people there, everything else. But there's another school down the road that's offering a price that's about $5,000 a year less than what you're asking for. And I'm just having a hard time justifying the price difference. Help me get to a place where I can say yes. And when you do that, because of the pressure that these schools are under, very often what they turn around and say is, let's see if we can figure out a way to make this work for you. And they'll come back with $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, sometimes way more than you'd expect, because they need you to come there. And they won't make anything off of you if you're not there at all.
Yes.
Mark, you made a very good point that as parents or as students going to college, you really have the power. You have the power to have these financial conversations with the university. So do not be intimidated, because you really do have the power, and you can ask. You're not obligated once you get that award letter or once you get the acceptance to say yes. Have that conversation, because it has long-term effects on the student and on the family. So that's a very good point. Take the time to have those conversations with the schools.
In my experience in higher education, the award letter that students receive is very rarely the best price that student can get. And in more cases, colleges are sort of expecting the family to call back and say, look, I don't know how we can make this work, and talk a little bit. So they've built in that wiggle room into their own system. So if a family doesn't even call, doesn't even ask, well, then
It's a
you're out
win
of
for
luck.
them.
Sure. So
Right.
call them, ask them. And, they're not going to be mad at you. They're going to be like, I'll try to make it work, because they want you to come. They've already accepted you. That means they want you to be there. So now it's just about trying to make it work. And colleges and universities are under a lot of pressure to get students. And we as a public need college education. So they're trying to find a way to get students in. The way that their business model works is they generally don't make any money off of freshmen. They make money off of sophomores, juniors, and seniors. So they're even more than ever willing to find a way to make it work and take advantage of the power that you have.
And, this is one of the things that I really want to highlight as we come into a conclusion. We work with a lot of schools, and we're consistently expanding. We've got like 3 more schools that we're getting ready to bring on board, high school districts. And so a lot of the school counselors that we've talked to, and I've talked to probably over the last 90 days, at least about 120 school counselors. And all of them want for the most part, they want their kids to go to college or trade. They want them to have minimum amount of debt when they graduate from college. They want them to not go to college and be undeclared. They want them to really start taking AP classes and dual credit classes in high school, right? So they can get down to college and already have some college credits already bagged, right? Go to college and be a sophomore, right? Or have an associate's degree, whatever that is, right? And so they all want the same thing. But the problem that we see, and that's why a lot of the schools that are wanting to bring our program on are excited about it, is they don't have time to network with Mark Salisbury at Tuition Fit, right? They don't have time to get everybody to put all of these award letters in this centralized platform that can give the students exposure to these different resources, right? They have 475 students to every 1 school counselor is a national ratio. So they don't have enough time in their day to have it's very crazy, right? They don't have enough time to have a financial aid conversation. They can have a fast for frenzy night, right?
Right.
But they don't have the time to go this deep into actually helping. So I want to make sure that people understand how that they can go to tuitionfit.com, right? I want to make sure I put this in the chat. Tuitionfit.com.
Yes.
When they go to
tuitionfit.com.org.
.com.org. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna can you put
tuitionfit.org.
that in the chat, Mark, and I'm gonna share .org. Okay,
Yeah.
let me put that out here. So when they go out there, they can learn, and in the app there is a link. So if you're in College Coaching Network, there is a link to Tuition Fit because we're partnered with Tuition Fit, and you can go directly to Tuition Fit right through the app. Okay, this is the place where you want to take your award letters as you start getting these back and have those uploaded into into his system in the portal and do your research. Okay, because being able to graduate from college and have little to no debt can change your life. Dude. Now, I want to paint a picture real quick. And I know this is Black History Month, so you're out here with some brothers, Mark, brothers and sisters. But I want
sisters. Don't forget the sisters
and the beautiful sister. But I want to paint this picture. And I was just talking to my wife about this. You can drive, and I'm just talking about giving your children. I know you may be 18, 19 years old, and one day you want to have a family or what have you. But being able to give that next generation an opportunity of good education. If you have student loan debts that are 50, 60, 70, 100,000, I've seen some people have almost $200,000 of student loan debts. You're looking at $800, $900, $1,000 a month in student loan payments. That's before
years.
Right, for 10 years, right? And if you defer it, it can compound and double, right? Now you're looking at $500,000. But the crazy thing about it is this: with that amount of money going out, you still haven't factored in a car payment, groceries, lights, cell phone, cable, rent, or mortgage payment. Do you understand that if you had an extra $1,000 that you can put on top of the rent payment that you're paying now, you could start out not renting, but owning. And if you start out owning a property in a good neighborhood and you stay in that neighborhood for 5 or 6 or 7 years, you can sell that property and make so much money because your house value has went up that you can move up to that $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 house, but it doesn't hit you because you're using equity as a down payment for the next home. And now your kids are able to go to good school districts, safe neighborhood, So we're talking about using Tuition Fit not only to put yourself in a position to have low college expenses, but we want to put you in a position where you can set up generations in your family because you're making solid financial decisions today. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Right. And just to add to that really quickly before we close out, knowledge is power. This gives you knowledge to go and negotiate and not to just go to the school and say, well, I think you need to give me more money. You have a system that allows you to have a lot of knowledge and go and have those conversations. So it's knowledge is power. This is a good tool to gain that knowledge on having those important conversations.
Yeah, I didn't give you much of those stories, but I can tell you of a couple of students real quick who, they got it. They applied to a couple of schools. They got a couple of award letters. The prices were more than they wanted to pay. And because they shared with Tuition Fit, all of a sudden they saw 4 or 5 other schools that they knew of. They just hadn't applied because they didn't have time. They didn't think, whatever. Suddenly they realized those schools are far less expensive than the ones I applied to. Well, guess what? Every one of those schools is still taking students all the way through August. You can still apply. So what? They got a deadline on their website. That doesn't matter anymore. And so each one of these students just took a turn left, looked at these other schools, and they're paying far less to go to college, and they're going to graduate with no debt. And when they graduate, they'll have learned a lot. They'll have grown up a lot. And the day after they graduate, they got every option sitting right there. They can do whatever they want because they don't have a debt burden hanging over their head. And that's what you were just talking about, Claude, that I think is so powerful. The whole purpose of this isn't just to learn more stuff. The whole purpose of this is freedom, is opportunity, is expanding the options and bringing a whole bunch of people with you. And you only do that if you make a really smart decision right now.
Financially, yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. I want to make sure I have this right. It's tuitionfit.com. .org or .com?
.org.
.org.
Yep.
.org. Okay, so I'm putting that out here now.
Yes.
Let me share this real quick as we get ready to sign off. So it's www.tuitionfit.org. Is that right?
Yep.
That's right.
All right.
Yes.
So if you're watching us on any of our social media channels, you can actually go to tuitionfit.org. If you're a part of the College Coaching Network family, you can go there under the scholarships tab, and you'll see a direct link to Tuition Fit there. And definitely plug in to Mark all of his resources. We will definitely have you back again because we want to start sharing some success stories with the students. We think that will get more traction to people coming out to your platform. When other students can talk about the experience that they've had with Tuition Fit, we think that's going to speak a lot more than somebody here just ranting and raving about it. Because I'm a fan of your work, but I think other kids need to be able to champion what you're doing too. Any parting words that you want to give as far as advice, or a family that they don't think that they have enough money to pay for their children to go to college? What kind of parting words could you give them as encouragement to utilize your services and explore all their options?
Well, I would say to every family, one is you're playing a long game, and it's not about what school you got into. It's about what you did while you're doing whatever education you're doing. And whether that means doing like I did and transferring twice just to pull together a college degree, that's okay too. But it's just playing that long game and being really smart with the decisions that are sitting right in front of you. And then it's about what you do while you're getting your education, what your student does, and plugging in and just wringing everything you can get out of that experience. And you can cobble together all kinds of really cool things outside of the college experience to add to your learning. You don't have to go to Club Med to get a college degree.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Good advice.
Enum, you got anything?
No, I just wanted to say that's very good advice. Thank you so much, Mark, for your time and your wise words. And I'm so excited about Tuition Fit. I think I'm going to go check it out myself right now.
Awesome.
But I just wanted to remind everybody, keep an eye out. We'll have more information coming out about our breakout sessions for the summer. We're also putting together a little survey because we want to hear from you. We want to know what information do you need from us so we can support you better. So keep an eye out for that on our social media as well. That's all I had. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you. It was really nice to meet you, and great to see you again, Claude.